No.
Tigers. Fight, Tigers, fight. Mike, it's not even a top 1,000 moment all time.
Okay, Tommy, shut the hell up, man.
Mike! Of course, I'm gonna go with the right answer. It's Ryan Eads of the Baltimore Orioles. He's only wore the number 80 for 8 games. He's only one of 2 players.
You know what? No, I'm not gonna take this.
Welcome back to Go Chat. We are back with episode number 103. If you're new here, smash that subscribe button. If you're not, welcome back to another great episode. It's 103. I mean, at this point, I'm starting to lose track on which episode we're on, and especially because there's no go to the number to follow that after. But we do have one more go to the number. It's go to the number 1. We never did this on episode 1, so this is going to be our final. I know we've said before that it's our final go to the number. This is our final go to the number. We'll be able to have 1 through 90, actually 0 through 99 after this. So it's kind of a sad one as we look back on all the memories of what we've been able to do with this go to the number segment. But we're at number 1. Connor, I'm going to start with you. You did miss last week. You did miss number 0. So if you want to give a quick shout out, and then get into your number 1, you could do that.
I watched you guys' episode last week. I saw that all of you guys went Russell Westbrook. I'll go the same there with number 0. Triple-double machine. For number 1, I'm going to go with the best defensive shortstop in all of baseball history, and that's Ozzie Smith, the Magic Man, the 15-time All-Star, 13-time Gold Glove, 1982 World Series champion, Silver Slugger, and NLCS MVP. Obviously, he holds a special place in Cooperstown where he belongs in the Hall of Fame. He was so good. 580 career stolen bases, 28 career home runs. Obviously, wasn't a big power hitter, but he had over 2,400 hits, a 262 career batting average. I mean, he was so good on both sides of offense and defensively wise in the sport of baseball. So I got to go with Ozzie Smith.
It's a good pick there. Mike, I'm going to throw it to you.
That's a great pick, Connor, and obviously he's in very, very strong contention here. But I'm going to go with someone different. I'm going to go with Oscar Robertson, the Big O, the original Mr. Triple-Double. He was the first person ever in NBA history to average a triple-double for the whole season. That's kind of where the whole thing started with Russell Westbrook, and then obviously he carried it on. But 12-time All-Star, 11-time All-NBA player, 6-time assist championship, 1971 NBA champion. I mean, he was just awesome. Obviously a Hall of Famer, Rookie of the Year, MVP. He was awesome. He really revolutionized that point guard position. He was one of the first taller guards to really be introduced into the NBA. And he was just something that the NBA has not seen before up until his time. And he just really changed the game. He's one of those players that you don't really think, when you think about players that change the game, you obviously think Michael Jordan, Steph, LeBron, Magic and Larry. But Oscar was one of the first to ever do that. So I got to go with him here.
Tommy.
See, Connor gave an amazing pick that I didn't even think of. And, Ozzie's the man. I'm going to go with who I went when we picked on the graphic way back, like over a year ago. Got to go with Billy Martin. His number 1 was retired by the Yankees. Am I glitching out again?
No.
I thought I was glitching out. But no, gotta go with Billy Martin. He played for the Yankees. He was an infielder. You could put him anywhere, second, short, and third. He was a 1-time All-Star, 4-time World Series champion as a player. He was solid, but really where he made his mark was as a manager. And while he only did win 1 World Series and a couple of pennants, he is one of the most recognizable managers in franchise history. Fired 5 times. George Steinbrenner brought him back. Well, it's not as much his fault. George would fire him, and then, George loved him, so he's like, all right, you can come back. But, Billy was great, just a character and, definitely a baseball legend. And he is not in the Hall of Fame like Ozzie Smith, but a case can be made, and I'm making it today, and he's my go to number 1.
Tommy, it's the go to the number. You shouldn't be mentioning that he got fired 5 times.
No, but when people think of Billy Martin, isn't that what people think of? The 5 firing.
I mean, sure, but if he was fired 5 times, how are we putting him over Ozzie Smith?
Or even another baseball player. I don't think Matt's going to pick him, but I'll mention him after Matt goes. So go ahead, Matt.
So you guys gave a bunch of good names. Oscar Robertson only wore number 1 for like 3 years, Mike. So I'm not gonna go with 4 years. With Milwaukee, not with when Cincinnati he wore number 14.
That's when he won his championship.
So, yeah, but I'm gonna go with Warren Moon, one of the best quarterback for the Tennessee Titans, Houston Oilers, whatever that you want to call that franchise. He's a Hall of Famer, 9-time Pro Bowler, 1989 Walter Payton Man of the Year. We've talked about that before, how significant that award is for the number, and also 1990 Offensive Player of the Year. Warren Moon is definitely one of the quarterbacks that you think of when you think of the NFL history. He might not be a top 10 quarterback. He might not be a top 5 quarterback, but he was a pretty darn good quarterback back in his day, especially with Houston. He had a short stint with Minnesota, short stint with Seattle, and then a short stint with the Kansas City Chiefs. But, I think Warren Moon was a great quarterback, and he's one of the guys. He's the guy I had on my graphic a year ago. He's what Mike had on the graphic, and Connor too. But I'm gonna have to go with Warren Moon here. Great picks. Ozzie Smith, I'm looking at his stats, Connor. Tremendous. He's very, very talented too. So I overall
Derek Jeter's a better overall shortstop, and I will go with that until the day I die. But Ozzie Smith was quite tremendous.
What was it? What was your baseball player?
I was going to say Pee Wee Reese could also be an option here. 10-time All-Star, also won a World Series. He was really good with the Brooklyn Dodgers. So I wouldn't pick him over Ozzie Smith, but he's definitely an honorable mention.
I mean, we got Chris Bosh on here too, now a Hall of Famer in the NBA.
There you go.
All right. Well, that's it for the go of the number in general. That is it. It is done, guys.
Can I ask Tommy, do you have any crazy honorable mention to throw out? One last honorable mention and go to the number for number 1.
See, this is tough. I mean, some might say that my pick today was a crazy one, but but no, I can't think of any. But Billy Martin's the man, so I'm happy to go with him today, even though he's not quite at Ozzie Smith's level by any means. But
all right, well, that is it for go of the number. We got a great episode for you guys today. We're gonna head into some NFL coming up next. Welcome back to Goat Chat. We are back with some NFL talk. We're 2 weeks in, 3 for Houston fans and Carolina fans. But we have how many undefeated teams? We have, so there's 5 in the NFC.
7.
And there's 2 in the AFC, meaning that there's 7 teams. Thank you, Connor, for that. 3 in the NFC West, which is very interesting to look at, with Seattle all the way down. You never think Seattle would be all the way down after 2 weeks in the NFL. But with these teams, like I said, it's the 49ers, Rams, Cardinals, the Panthers, 3-0, notably, the Bucks, and then over to the AFC, you have the Raiders and the Broncos. 2 teams that I would never expect to be on top of the AFC West in a million years. But with all these teams, I wanted to pose you guys a question. Which undefeated team will most likely miss the NFL playoffs? Connor, I'm going to start with you. The Jets are undefeated, just to let you know.
Dang, man, they're not going to make the playoffs even if they were 5-0. It would not, I mean, there's a lot of teams on here that I think have real capability of missing the playoffs. I mean, obviously Kansas City in AFC West, they're still going to win that division. I think that's very, very solidified in a lot of people's minds. So I think we could crash right off the Raiders and the Broncos. I think the biggest team that I think is undefeated that's not going to make it is the Raiders. They had 2 really good games in the first 2 weeks. They beat Pittsburgh and they beat Baltimore in 2 really good games, and Derek Carr looked really good. I just don't think it's sustainable for that team. I mean, again, they're in an AFC West with the Chargers and the Chiefs, and I think those are the 2 top teams in that division. And then there's going to be one more team getting into that wild card spot, and I think that team's going to be coming out of the AFC North or even the East, one of those divisions. So I just don't think it's sustainable for them to make it into the postseason, even with Denver. I came into the season super low on Denver, and they've played well the first 2 weeks. But again, I just don't think it's sustainable with the division and competition play this year.
That's a very interesting take. I'm going to stick with the AFC West here, and I'm going to go with the Broncos. The reason why is the Broncos, they did play really well, like you said, in their first 2 games, but they also were playing the Giants, which Giants do have a good defense, I will say that, and the Jaguars, who have just been looking absolutely bad. They play the Jets tomorrow, but right after that is when they start getting in those dog days. They got the Ravens, Steelers, Raiders, Browns, football team, Cowboys, Eagles, Chargers, Chiefs, and then their next easy game is the Lions, in my opinion. So I'm going to have to say the Broncos would most likely. I do think that a few of these teams can miss the playoffs. I could see that, but for undefeated teams and most likely going to miss it, I'm going to have to side with the Broncos. Mike, what are you thinking on this?
I'm going to have to agree with Connor here. I got to go with the Las Vegas Raiders. And although their offense is, still very good, even with the lack of an offensive line, I just think that their defense is not there yet. I think they went up against the Steelers, who were not able to capitalize on opportunities, and the Ravens, who surprisingly, they're really good at holding leads and, keeping them. And they just weren't able to do that against the Raiders. The Raiders made, I wouldn't say a miraculous comeback, but a very, very fortunate comeback against Baltimore, that Monday night game. Phenomenal game, by the way. But I just don't think that the type of play that they have right now is sustainable throughout the season. So, and I think a lot of that can be said for other teams like the Broncos and the Panthers. Both teams have had, all of those teams, and even the 49ers, they've all had pretty light schedules so far. So I think all 4 of those teams are probably going to miss the playoffs. But if I had to pick one to miss the playoffs, it'd definitely be the Raiders.
Tommy?
Yeah, this is tough. I think you make good points. I think I'm going to go with the Panthers here. Their strength of schedule so far hasn't been great. No offense to Connor's Jets, obviously, but, just got past the Jets, won 19-14. Beat the Saints pretty convincingly, but obviously they're not as strong as they have been in previous years, although they do have some good players. Alvin Kamara is still there, of course. And then, they beat the Houston Texans 24-9, which is not a great team for sure, but, don't want to discredit what they've done, but at the same time, I just feel like, their 3-0 start is a product of a weak strength of schedule thus far. And, especially with Tampa Bay in that division, the defending champions, I just don't feel like they're going to be able to at least win the division. I guess you never know the wild card, but, I think that once they start playing some better competition, they're going to fall off a little bit. And, Tampa's ultimately going to win that division.
Call me crazy. I think Carolina has a shot to be a good team this year. We've seen that defense has been really, really good to start this year. Brian Burns is such a good athlete. Obviously an injury to J.C. Horn on Thursday night. Definitely have to look at that, see the severity of that and how that plays. Christian McCaffrey went down with an injury on Thursday night. Got to see how these injuries play out. But Carolina looks good. I like Matt Rule. When they brought in Matt Rule 2 years ago for the Jets had offered him a job, and then they pulled that back away because they weren't going to give him enough, or he declined because they weren't going to give him enough reins. I like Matt Rule as a head coach. Joe Brady is a great offensive coordinator. And I think they're really playing to the strengths of their new quarterback in Sam Darnold. He's thrown close to 900 yards in 3 games. This is most in his start. This is his first 3-0 start. As we look at their schedule going ahead, the Cowboys is going to be a tough game, but I think it's winnable. The defense is good. Then you got the Eagles against a young quarterback. I think that could be good. Vikings, that's a tough competition. Then you got the Giants, the Falcons, the Patriots with a rookie quarterback. Their schedule really doesn't play too hard to start the year. So, even if they go in to their bye week, or even in these next couple of weeks, and their first 7 games, they're 5-2 or something like that, they're in a good position. Obviously those games down the line against Tampa Bay, and they have Washington football team and the Saints and the Bills and the Dolphins there towards the end of their schedule. Those are going to be the tough games. That's where we're really going to see what this team has. But I like where they stand right now. Obviously we gotta evaluate these injuries that they suffered on Thursday night. But I like the strength of this team. I like how it looks. The defense looks really, really good. Sam looks promising.
I do like the Carolina Panthers. I think they're going to be a good team. I kind of said that they were when, we had that Sam Darnold trade episode. That was a journey to get through that episode. But I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And I think that's a product of the NFC and the good teams in the NFC, because I can see the NFC West sending 3 teams. I can also see the NFC East sending 2 teams with the Cowboys and the Eagles. So I think that's a product of the NFC, not a product on them, because they've been playing really good. Of course, McCaffrey's injury is going to hurt them for a few weeks with that offense, but they are a good team. I would just not say they're going to make the playoffs as of right now.
I'd agree with that. I think they have a really good future, and their schedule does play out nicely this first half of the year. Obviously, that second half is where it's going to come down, and they really have to play well. But you're right. I mean, the NFC West is so competitive. The NFC East is, I wouldn't call it a very good division, but they have good teams there. There's so many competitive teams in this era of the NFL where, we're just seeing teams are going to be over 500 this year and miss the postseason. That's something that we don't see very often.
Yeah, I really do like what the Panthers are building down in Carolina, but I just don't think that this is the year for them to make the playoffs. Like you said, Connor, they have the Cowboys next week, which I think is going to be a loss, and then they have the Vikings in 2 weeks.
Of course you think that's going to be a loss.
I just think that the Cowboys are a better team than the Panthers. I don't really think that's like a hot take or anything like that. I also think that they're going to lose to the Patriots, and then like you said before, the second half their schedule is really tough. I think they'll finish around 500. They are a better team than I thought they were coming into the season. But once you stack on those injuries to Christian McCaffrey, who was their best offensive player, and J.C. Horn, who is really shoring up that secondary very, very well, it's going to be extremely detrimental to this team. And I think this defense, for it to play like the way it was before, the pass rush is still going to need to be there because the secondary is going to get worse, which was really their weakest spot on their defense. So I'm just curious to see, are they going to be able to fill in for the loss of J.C. Horn, who could be out for almost the whole season? And we'll see what happens to Christian McCaffrey. But I'm interested to see how Sam Darnold plays without Christian McCaffrey and how the defense, specifically the secondary, performs without J.C. Horn.
No, I think it's a very valid point about the defense. We look back to Dallas versus the Chargers this past Sunday. Everyone thought that was going to be offensive shootout type game. 70 points up on the board. It was a 17-14 game with Greg the Leg kicking a 50-plus yard field goal to win the game. Carolina's defense is capable of holding teams under a certain point range. And we see Dallas, they struggled against a good Chargers defense. That's going to be an interesting matchup to see this following to Sunday, to see that Dallas offense, a very explosive offense, against a good defense, missing a key piece. But it'll be an interesting matchup to see how Carolina really lines up with an NFC competitor.
Yeah, It will be. We do have I was just thinking about this, and then we can pose this question really quickly because I don't think it's going to take a lot of analysis. Which team's going to be the last one undefeated? I will start, and I think it's going to be either the Rams or the Bucks. It depends who wins against who this Sunday. I'm going to say the Bucks because that's safer. I do think the Rams might win, and GOAT picks, that's going to be our GOAT pick game, and I'm probably going to have to do the opposite of what Mike/Tommy does. But I do think, and I will predict that Mike picks the Bucks because I don't think it's going to even be a question. So I do think the Rams can be the last team undefeated.
I think it's going to be the Arizona Cardinals. I said back when we posted our division predictions back in August that I think they're going to win this division. And obviously a missed field goal in week 2 helped them stay 2-0. But they play the Jaguars this week, which I think could be a good team. The Jaguars, I think, are the worst team in football, even adding Trevor Lawrence. And then week 4 is that Cardinals-Rams. So, if the Rams do happen to beat the Bucks this week, that's the matchup right there between undefeated teams to see who's potentially who's the last undefeated team. But I mean, even after that, then they got the 49ers and the Browns. Their schedule's picking up. But I think the Cardinals are a really good team. I really like Kyler Murray this year. He's using his legs to his advantage, but he's not necessarily using them to scramble and run, but he's using them to evade and find that open receiver, and it gives him extra time. So I really like this Arizona Cardinals team.
Mike?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Tampa. I think this game against the Rams is going to be very close because it's going to be in LA at SoFi Stadium, and that's going to be the game of the week by far. And I'll tell you guys right now, I'm probably going to pick the Bucs. Obviously, I got to pick the Bucs, and I think that their schedule isn't too tough. I think Tom Brady is going to go into New England and absolutely torch them, and then they'll come back to Tampa, play the Dolphins. Who knows what's going to happen with Tua by then? But after that, they got the Eagles and the Bears, and then the Saints, and then Washington, and then New York. And I think those are all very winnable games. So I think it's going to be Tampa. If not Tampa, then it's really a toss-up because the Rams are playing two NFC West rivals. After that, they play the Cardinals one of those weeks. So I think it's going to be if LA does beat Tampa, I think it will probably be LA. So I think those are my two choices as of right now.
Tommy, you going to go with Tampa, Tom?
Yeah, I got to go with the Bucs. I mean, I think that Mike covered it pretty well because that's his second team, of course. But
no, it's the Ravens. Come on.
Oh, he does like the Ravens too. But yeah, I mean, I got to go with the Bucs here. I can't pick against Tom Brady.
Yeah, I expected that.
We can pose the question because we talked about how we see three potential teams coming out of the NFC West. What teams do we think are at the top of that division at the end of the year? Obviously, week 3, this is still early speculation, but who do we think comes out of that division?
Rams. Easily. No question. I don't even have to think about it. I'm going to go with the Rams. I think the Cardinals are a great team. They're probably going to make the playoffs. I just don't see them staying on top of the NFC West. And I think, we saw what the Vikings were able to do against them defensively. They had a tremendous first game. I will say that, but I would also do think Tennessee was seeing ghosts or something that whole day. I mean, that wasn't the Tennessee offense that we saw in week 2. So I'm going to say the Rams.
What do you think, Mike?
I think it's going to be between Seattle and the Rams. If I had to pick one, it's going to be LA because that team is just more complete. I just really the only worry about Seattle. Like their defense is like pretty good, but LA is just like so much better. It really is so much better. And the only reason I didn't pick, well, I technically had this Seahawks and Rams tied for first, but the Seahawks had the tiebreaker. But I was just curious to see how Stafford would, first brand new team for the first time in his career. He played however many years in Detroit, over 10. I was just curious to see if there was going to be, a transition period where he would struggle. And there's been absolutely no struggle. Him and Cooper Kupp have a phenomenal connection, one of the best in the NFL already. So ultimately, I think it's going to be the Rams coming out of that division. But I do think that the Seahawks and Cardinals will make the playoffs.
Tommy, what do you think?
I think I'm going to go with the Rams, too. I was thinking about saying the Seahawks because I think they do have a chance, but I'll go with the Rams. Like you said, I think they're a really strong team. And, it's going to be close, so obviously really strong division all around. But, yeah, I'm going to pick the Rams.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with my original analysis. Cardinals winning the division, then I'm going to go with the Rams taking a wild card spot. I don't trust Seattle. I said it at the beginning of the year that I think they're going to finish last in this division. And, we saw it on Sunday. They had Tennessee down, 24-9, I think it was, start of the third quarter or something along those lines. And Tennessee won that game in overtime. Obviously, Derrick Henry had a massive second half. But as a team who's contending, you got to be able to stop that team when you're up plus 10 points in the second half of an NFL game. And when you can't do that, it's concerning to me. So I got to go with the Rams. I just think they're a much more complete team.
Yeah, it was 24-9 at halftime, and Tennessee went out and scored 24 points in the second half and overtime. But yeah, I don't like Seattle's defense at all. I don't think they're good I don't. They only held the Colts to 16 points, but that also was Carson Wentz's first game since the
2019.
Packers. Since the game against the Packers in 2020.
Yeah.
And I don't like they just had an awful second half, and I don't really think that they're anything that good. I mean, Seattle might slide into the playoffs because it's Russell Wilson, and having him outside of the playoffs is something that you can't even think about. I just don't think their defense is good, and that's going to be that's going to be what's going to hurt them.
Mike, you're shaking your head. Do you disagree?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're judging the Seahawks off one really, really bad half against Tennessee where they blew a massive lead, and I totally understand that. And their defense isn't anything great, but I think they're more than capable to make the playoffs. We saw them make the playoffs, and if I'm pretty sure they won the NFC West last year, right? So I think there's no reason why they can't do the same thing this year. And I even think that their team is better this year compared to last year. I know they lost a corner who went to Jacksonville, but I still think that their team overall as a whole is better than it was a year ago. And their offense is still lights out. I still think that their new offensive coordinator has come in and done some great stuff with that offense, picked up the pace, and now they're scoring more and more points. And I think that's going to lead to a playoff berth for them.
Mike, my concern with the Seahawks, though, is we always see Russell Wilson every year. First 8 weeks of the year, he's always MVP candidate. He's always that guy. He's got those deep bombs to Tyler Lockett. He's hitting Metcalf for touchdowns. As the weeks progress, that second half of the year, he always has this little stumble. And with a defense that really isn't good. I am not a big fan of that Seattle defense. They did lose a lot of pieces. I don't think Jamal Adams is worth the money that he got this past offseason. He's a good linebacker. He's not a safety. He allows way too many completions. 8.5 sacks. That's great. That's a record by safety. You have to be able to cover. And when he can't do that in the NFL, that's a problem. And when Russell Wilson does have that stumble, because we all know it's going to happen this second half of the year, he's going to need that defense or Chris Carson to be able to pick him up. And I just don't know if they'll be able to do that.
Well, I mean, that's exactly what they did last year. You look at the first 4 games, we were talking the Seattle defense and the Cowboys defense, one of the worst in NFL history. The Seahawks were able to turn that defense around and turn to league average 16th ranked defense in all the NFL. So I think the same thing can happen this year. And I think that with the new offensive coordinator from the Rams, I think that they're going to be less predictable throughout the season. Obviously, I could be totally wrong with that. Maybe it's just Pete Carroll running the show, but I think that this new offensive coordinator has really come in and made some major changes, and Russell Wilson might hit a little lull again, but I don't think it's going to be near the type of drop-off that we saw last season. And I think the defense will still be there to pick him up. Plus, I mean, who else? I don't think the 49ers are going to beat him out for a playoff spot. I really can't. Maybe the Vikings, but there's 3 wild card spots in the NFC. So I still have the Seahawks in the playoffs for me.
I totally think, I'm not saying they're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
I'm just saying how weak that defense is, and that's what's kind of what stands out to me in the NFC West really is the 49ers offense and the Seahawks defense. But it's all about the competition. It's all about what plays out. I do think there is a chance that we don't see Seattle. It's because think about it. They're also playing the NFC West twice. All teams in the NFC West, that's 6 games. So you never know what's going to happen there. I think it's totally a possibility. I truly think that the Cardinals and Rams have a better shot as of right now to make the playoffs over the Seahawks, in my opinion, after seeing 2 games. But it is only 2 games, and,
Yeah.
we'll have to see how the season plays out.
Yeah,
So I
definitely.
think that's been a lot of talk about the NFL. Does anyone have any last minute comments before we go into go to the week?
Micah Parsons is special. That's all I gotta say.
I
He's a
told
special
you.
player.
Can you say that you told me so on air, or that
I mean,
I told you so on air?
I guess so. I mean, if you did say that he was the best defensive player in the draft, and that's still up for debate, honestly, because Pat Surtain is playing phenomenally as well. But the fact of the matter is that both of these players are great, and I didn't think Micah Parsons would get off to this great of a start just because he just has not played football for that long, but he's just so naturally instinctive. And
You didn't say what I wanted you to say.
I literally just said that.
No, say I told you so.
What? No.
I did. I came on
I
here.
just said, Connor,
Say I told you so.
I told you so. Like, you told me that Micah Parsons was a special player.
That's all I want. That's all I want.
That's what you told me.
Credit. I want the credit.
I said he has the potential to be. I just didn't know if it would happen immediately. And I was wrong. He's pretty much, without DeMarcus Lawrence, he's the best player on that defense.
I don't know. I think Cowboys are a little overrated right now, but it's all.
Of course they are. They always are. But Micah Parsons is a very special talent, and I saw it back in April. That's going to wrap up this NFL segment. Again, we aren't going to have full picks on this episode, but the graphic will be posted on our Instagram. It's coming down to the wire. We got, two slates of GOAT picks left. Matt and I got to try to catch them. Catch that on our Instagram. But we are going to go into the GOAT of the week next.
Welcome back to Go Chat. We are here with the GOAT of the week. Matt won last week with Kyler Murray for his week 1 performance against the Tennessee Titans. Well-deserved there. That was a great choice, Matt, even though there were some other good competitors in that race. But I'm going to swing it to you first, Matt. You're out and GOAT of the week by like at least 8 to 10. I don't know what the number is. Is there even a point in counting when you're destroying us like this? But anyways, who is your GOAT of the week?
I think the number is at 25 right now, Mike. But no, there was great competition last week. Obviously, went into overtime with Max Scherzer. Mike, I'm forgetting who you picked. Lindor.
I had to pick Lindor for that performance against the Yankees, that last game in the Subway Series. It's going to be one of the only highlights this season for the Mets, so I had to take it. And
then Chandler Jones also had a good week. I know Connor was going to pick Chandler Jones, so that would have been a good pick too. But this week I'm going to go with Tom Brady for his performance against the Atlanta Falcons. I mean, last week he played tremendous, 276 yards, 5 touchdowns, a passer rating of 129.2. Tampa Tom is already looking fantastic in 2021, and he quite possibly can be an MVP favorite by the end of this year. And yeah, I mean, whopping 5 touchdowns, incredible.
That's a great pick there, Matt. Obviously, the Bucs are already out and dominating this season, so great pick there. Tommy, how about you? Who do you got?
Well, I got to go with Luis Severino. Obviously, was out for the entire season, and he did come back this week. Only pitched in 1 game. He could pitch tonight. We're recording this on Friday, so maybe by the time you're voting, he would have pitched again. But, his season debut came earlier this week against the Texas Rangers, and he was just outstanding. I mean, 2 innings, 2 strikeouts, and he was throwing incredibly hard. I didn't have a chance to watch it myself, but, everybody said he looked outstanding out there. So great to see him back. I mean, you think about 2018, how dominant he was, and 17 as well. I mean, when he's healthy, he's one of the better pitchers in the game. And the Yankees will have him for the remainder of this year out of the bullpen, which is very important. So happy to see him back, and gotta go Luis Severino.
That's another good pick there, Tommy. Obviously, he has not pitched for a while. He had that unfortunate Tommy John surgery, but hopefully he's back and better than ever. But I don't think he'll be good enough to push the Yankees in the playoffs. Anyways, Connor, what do you think?
Okay. The Yankees are going to make the playoffs. First off,
I
wasn't here for that. I wasn't here for that episode last week. Yankees are going to get a wild card spot. Secondly, Luis Severino looked really good. His changeup looked like it was really working. Got a couple swing and misses on that for that. So Tommy, that's a really good pick. I'm excited to see how he comes back the rest of the year, and then obviously in the next season. But I'm going to go with Derrick Henry. I mentioned him earlier. He had a really good game, 182 yards. 3 touchdowns on the ground. And then we saw something from him that we haven't really seen in the past, which is he was able to catch the ball out of the backfield. He was targeted 6 times, had 6 catches for 55 yards receiving. So just a huge game from Derrick Henry. I mean, these are the games that we expect to see from him after a week 1, not too great performance with just 58 yards. So he played great.
Yeah, he ran wild against Seattle. That was another great performance there. But the performance that comes to the top of the top, the cream that rises, is Lamar Jackson, and he should be this week GOAT of the week. He came out against the Kansas City Chiefs, threw 2 interceptions off the bat, did not start off well at all. everyone was thinking, oh, this is going to be another game where the Chiefs and Mahomes just blow Lamar and the Ravens. Mahomes has Lamar's number 1,000%, but he kept his poise. He was resilient, and he came back, fought back, and he won the game. Finished with over 200 passing yards. He had a touchdown. He also had 100 yards on the ground along with 2 touchdowns. You know, I already know what Matt and Connor are going to say. You know, he's a running back and stuff, but he played to his strengths. He put the Ravens on the back of his shoulders, and he carried them to a win. I don't know if any other quarterback in that situation would lead Baltimore to a win that week. And what he did, especially with all like the past matchups between him and Mahomes, was absolutely phenomenal. And it's going to be one of the best performances we are going to see this whole season.
He literally missed practice on Wednesday because he was showboating and did a flip into the end zone and hurt himself. And he missed practice.
He had a stomach bug.
No, that is not what it was. It was a hip injury.
He did have a
He's
stomach.
talking about he had a stomach bug.
Yeah, it was. He did hurt his hip though, for being an idiot. I will say that, but he did have a stomach bug and missed practice on Wednesday or Thursday. It was one of those days.
I think it was Thursday.
I'm sorry.
But
come again. You said no other quarterback would be able to do that. Is that what you said?
In the position that Lamar is in.
They would have never been in that position to start out if it was a better quarterback than Lamar.
Okay, well, they were in that position anyways, and Lamar carried them back to a comeback win. Everyone says that Lamar can't lead teams to comeback wins. He did in the playoffs last year. Everyone calls him a front year, and he did it this year against the best offense in the NFL, and a team that a lot of people think is the number 1 team in the NFL in the Kansas City Chiefs, and it was just a phenomenal performance. Obviously, Derrick Henry and every other pick that you guys had were great picks, but I just think that Lamar is the best of the best in this situation.
Okay. I do kind of think that another quarterback, you know, a limited number of quarterbacks, I will say that would be able to come back. But no, he had a good game. I'm not gonna discredit that, and it looked good on my fantasy roster too. So I was happy about that. So definitely Lamar Jackson. All great picks here. We're back to the NFL season. We're back to some really good picks. I mean, Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Tyler Lockett had a good game. Aaron Rodgers really had a good game for his second week coming back. So even Kyler Murray. But there was definitely some great picks that could have been mentioned. Also, the dude who got 2 pick sixes on Tampa. I don't remember his name.
Mike Edwards.
Yeah. He would have been a really good pick too. I thought about that.
Yeah. Bunch of great picks in the NFL, but does anyone have any final thoughts about go of the week, go to the number, last episode with it? Any NFL thoughts before we sign off?
I mean, another great week NFL. We got a tremendous game that could quite possibly be the Super Bowl this Sunday. So make sure to watch that, and we'll be back with some really good, some new content, obviously, to fill for go to the number. Hopefully, we figure that out soon.
Yep. All right. Well, this is going to wrap up episode 103. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Go to all our socials, hit that follow button. We post a bunch of great stuff there, especially on Instagram. So make sure you're following us on all platforms. You know, you can listen to us too if you don't want to watch the videos on YouTube or on any podcast platform you want. Anyways, this is going to wrap up episode 103. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.